It's been over 2 decades since a Chinese prospect has gained this much national media attention. In fact, an estimated 5.2 million people tuned in to watch Yang Hansen's Summer League game against the Memphis Grizzlies, which is more viewers than most national playoff games in recent years.
Guy that's here for the week with the sun for vacation.
For a guy who was projected to be a mid-second round pick, things quickly started to change behind the scenes. Teams quickly noticed him and changed their opinions as draft night quickly approached.
Yang Hansen from Zibo, China.
While the Portland Trail Blazers took him with the 16th pick, which surprised everyone, in reality, there were several teams who were aiming to take him in the first round, as they witnessed the immense amount of potential and talent this young kid has. Unlike Yao Ming, who was projected to be the #1 pick for many months before getting drafted, it wasn't the case with Yang Hansen, who, a year before the 2025 draft, was seldom known in the basketball world. How did this happen? How did this 7'1" center who spent his entire career playing in the Chinese Basketball Association, a league that doesn't have the same level of talent or respect as other professional leagues, become such a highly touted prospect in the blink of an eye? And now the entire world is anticipating his ascendance on the NBA stage.
Hansen with the block. He absolutely has an understanding, particularly in the middle of the floor.
In the 2 weeks leading up to the draft, the name Yang Hansen started to quickly spread through scouting circles. Most folks don't know this, but he actually worked out for 5 different teams: the Hawks, the Nets, the Jazz, the Timberwolves, and the Blazers. All 5 of these teams had a first-round pick between 16 and 23. And apparently, he impressed them so much that they were willing to take him at those spots. It wasn't just the Blazers who had their eyes set on Yang, but every team he worked out for were willing to use their late first-round pick to get him. The Hawks, in particular, held 3 different interviews with Yang Hansen. They had the 23rd pick and really liked what they saw. The Hawks fan base was convinced they were getting him because even at 23, it seemed like a reach. Yet the Blazers snatched him away even earlier. The Timberwolves, who had the pick right after Portland, also seemed upset when Yang got drafted. As evident by this very blurry footage of the Wolves draft team, they were the only people not clapping when the Blazers selected him. Maybe they wanted to pick him at a later point, but still. All of this means one thing: several teams wanted him. It indicates he exceeded expectations during his workouts and crushed his interviews, and his hopes of being a first-round pick slowly became a reality. However, his rise to prominence could only be described as a gradual process. Back in the 2023 FIBA Under-19 World Cup, while China didn't do well as a team, Yang individually caught some eyes. He averaged over 10 rebounds, nearly 5 assists, and 5 blocks per game, which led all players in the FIBA tournament. What really stood out was the matchup between him and Alex Sarr of France, the #2 pick of his class. Yet Hansen played incredibly well against him.
Olivier watching. Here's Morin.
He was the #2 pick, but the 2024 class was relatively weak. So this wasn't necessarily the moment that put his name on the map, but it did launch him into serious prospect conversations. As a player who grew and developed under the Chinese basketball program, it's always a hit or miss, and scouts tend to be very wary of players from that league. Despite being a CBA All-Star, the Rookie of the Year, and Defensive Player of the Year, those accolades did not mean much in the eyes of the scouts. But when he showed his brilliance on the international stage, that opened a new door for Hansen. And it got people wondering, can he really become a legitimate NBA prospect? Not just a second-round pick, which for an entire year he was projected to be. A playstyle that seemed familiar. One of the biggest revelations of the modern era is the revival of the NBA center. After the post-Shaq era, the NBA had been dominated by guards and wing players for a long time. Besides Dwight Howard, there really hasn't been a true center who can dominate the game and force his will. It wasn't until the turn of the decade when centers and big men in general became a dominant force to build around. Joel Embiid, Giannis Antetokounmpo, and of course, Nikola Jokic, who Hansen himself stated was the player he modeled his game after. This archetype of a center who can score in the post and have the vision to pass has seen a resurgence in modern times. For example, guys like Alperen Şengün and Domantas Sabonis fit into a similar mold, both of whom are all-star caliber players. Because of the success these players have experienced in recent years, I think they also indirectly boosted Hansen's stock as well. Scouts look at Hansen and see his scoring ability in the paint along with his exceptional court vision. It reminds them of those guys. So they believe he too can become an all-star caliber center.
Nice cut by Carter and the layup. The big man with another delivery lane. Not afraid of putting the ball in his hand. I mean, that is a creative delivery.
The value of big men who can pass is now at an all-time high, as everyone has realized how effective it could be when you build a team around these guys. Fans have labeled him as the Chinese Jokic. On top of his offensive skill set, Hansen has also showed out on defense. At a glance, you'd see a slow-footed 7-footer who would probably struggle defensively due to his somewhat average wingspan for his height. A 7'3" wingspan is good, but compared to like Rudy Gobert or his own teammate Donovan Clingan, who both sport like 7'8" or 7'9" wingspans. But Hansen makes up for it by having massive hands, with measurements comparable to Shaquille O'Neal. His hands are actually larger than Kawhi Leonard's. In reality, Hansen's defense is arguably the most polished aspect of his game. And the once slow-footed center looks faster than before, as he lost weight and got into better shape as the draft approached.
Shoot that over the front of the rim with his right. Hansen with the block.
A Blazers writer described him positively prior to draft night. After his workout with the team, he said, quote, "Coaches and scouts rave about his work ethic. His defensive discipline, lateral quickness, and ability to stay in position already match the traits Portland covets." Even if Hansen never comes close to the level of Jokic or even Sabonis or Şengün, there's a chance he could still solidify his place in the league with his defensive presence alone. The Blazers are about to be sold. On May 13th, 2025, the Paul Allen estate made an announcement. The Blazers are officially for sale. Now, for those who've been following NBA team valuations in recent years, they've been selling for stupid amounts of money. In the last few years, we've seen many teams getting sold, and they broke records. The Mavericks, $3.8 billion, the Suns, $4 billion, the Celtics, $6.1 billion, and the Lakers at $10 billion. With Paul Allen's passing in 2018, his estate has been mulling the idea of selling the team eventually, and now they realized it's the best time to do it. And what better way to increase the value of your franchise? Draft a popular player from a country of 1.4 billion people who love basketball. I mentioned how his summer league games broke records overseas, but imagine how many fans tune in to Blazer games if Hansen actually turns out to be good. Heck, even if he isn't good, even if he gets minimal amount of playing time, fans are still going to tune in to watch. By drafting Yang Hansen, the Paul Allen estate probably raised the value of their franchise by a few percentage points, at least. Perhaps that was the driving factor for them to take him with the 16th pick. Is a Twin Tower lineup possible? The last time we've seen a true Twin Tower lineup that composed of two 7-foot-plus big men and actually found success, it was probably Karl Anthony Towns and Rudy Gobert in Minnesota. But even then, Towns was such a versatile scorer, a three-point threat, and just generally a much different player than Gobert. For Clingan and Yang, the Blazers used a similar kind of logic. They're very different players, and they both excel at different parts of the game, although there's some overlap. Unfortunately, they also have similar weaknesses. In particular, neither of them have displayed a consistent outside shot, or a remarkable scoring ability outside the paint, something that Towns excelled in right when he came into the NBA. When the Blazers selected Yang, the first question wasn't, why did we draft a random guy from China so early in the draft? It was, why did we draft two centers in a row? Does the team not have faith in Clingan as the starting center of their future? Very few thought these two could play together, and there were real concerns they might not ever be able to. However, with Yang's exceptional passing ability and surprisingly great handles for a man of his size, he provides a level of versatility far different than the more rugged Clingan. Similar to the Towns-Gobert dynamic which brought the Wolves to their first deep playoff run in 2 decades, the Blazers hope their two young centers can play together eventually and do the same. Most importantly, however, it provides the Blazers with an insurance policy. If either one of Yang or Clingan don't pan out, then they have the other one to rely on. So it's perfectly fine to draft 2 centers in back-to-back drafts with the goal of hitting on one of them. In a conversation between Keith Smith of Sportrack and a Blazers front office executive, the executive told him, quote, "I know you didn't like that pick, but we love him. In today's NBA, your big man has to be versatile and able to do a lot of stuff. We feel like Yang is going to be really good for us, and probably sooner than most expect." His performance in Summer League was an eye-opener. It wasn't just the passing, but to read the defense and react appropriately is a skill that few centers in history have mastered. And depending on how good his ball handling develops, we might even see some pick-and-roll action between their 2 centers. With how high the Blazers organization is on Yang, I can't see him coming off the bench for that long. Anyway, that's all folks. What are your predictions on Yang Hansen? Do you truly believe he can be a core piece of this franchise for the foreseeable future? Or will he become one of many Chinese prospects to flame out of the league quite quickly? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. Thank you all so much for watching, and of course, as always, I'll see you next time. Peace.